I could keep you here all night. You don't want to get me started. Well, I think for people of faith, it's the greatest expression of love. John chapter 3, verse 16, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whoever should believe in him should not perish and should have eternal life. Whether you're a Christian or not, the birth of a child is a universal, joyful experience. So I think in one very broad sense, out of many can be one, in terms of depiction of a particular event kind of striking a very common chord across all humanity. We can all share that as a member of the human race. What does it take a village? Well, that's the same with this collection. It takes many people to make a collection. I have a contact, a colleague whom I've only met by email in Spain, who's a collector, and so has a number of contacts. One way or another, he made contact with a gentleman in Australia, Wade Fairley, who would go to the Solomon Islands on a project. He was a filmmaker, by the way, and he was aware of this particular carver and made the contact. This contactor, Zonda Willie, was a carver. That's what he did for a living, and it has a bit of a marine theme, which is what he tended to do with his regular carving, but you have figures made just the torso level and some little touches of shell for the eyes and decorative part of Mary. And then the three wise men, or magi, and Joseph hold fish. So it's very unusual, it's very unique, and one other nice dimension of this is that the money from that was given to fund his daughter enrolling in this college there in her home area, so that was very appealing. The retablo nativity from Peru that was made by Nicario Jimenez Quispe is really one of the more unusual and dynamic nativities in the collection. Retablos, I might say, come in box form as presented in Nicario's work, or in a flat panel or something where an image of a saint or holy figure is painted on it, maybe part of an altar. I like to call this the mashed potato nativity, because it's basically made of boiled potatoes that are mashed, laced with plaster of Paris, and becomes a clay-like substance. Nicario crafts the individual pieces, the torso, the arms, the legs, separately, lets them air dry, then he will put them together, then he will paint them and put a preservative on them. So they are actually made, by and large, from mashed potatoes. I get asked many times, what's your favorite creche? And I really can't answer that question very well. But this is certainly one of the prized ones in the collection. It was acquired for us by our older son, Michael, made by Antoni Kamiński. And while I haven't been able to find a lot of his work, in terms of my familiarity with Polish carvers, he's one of my favorites. Antoni's work, Mr. Kamiński's work, perhaps I should say, actually the figures have large eyes, and it's one of the things that, if you look at it, it draws you into the work. I mean, you're struck by these people looking at you like that, and so I think you connect with the work that way. He likes to make what's presented in this scene, but he likes to make them in these waves of figures, and he will make them maybe as many as 4 or 5 waves of different figures, although this one is maybe a more moderate form in that it has the Holy Family, magi and shepherds and villagers, and then this one piece of wood of 17 angels, sort of an angelic choir there. This one I think is about 3 feet wide, actually. So he likes to make them with this sort of range of levels of figures. So to my knowledge, he's still carving. I'm very attracted to his work. I just wish I could locate a few more pieces. One of the delightful nativities that people react to in the collection is this beaded nativity from Zimbabwe, which has a number of animals with the Holy Family. This particular work is done by a young man. I say young, he's perhaps around 30, maybe a little bit older today, by the name of Patmore, who is from Zimbabwe, but he was part of a group of artisans or artists in his little town in the 1990s that began to do this kind of beadwork. And actually, in this case, the beads are metallic. And Patmore has some, I guess, young associates that do a lot of the beadwork. He does the major wire structure of the figures, and then we'll do some of the beaded work that's more complicated. So he has a little bit of assistance, but they're absolutely charming and appealing to everybody, not just young children who might be attracted to them, but to everybody. This particular nativity, I think in a way one of the prized nativities in the collection, was produced by 2 brothers, one of them a very well-known artist in Brazil, Miguel Avila, who has done some significant works in the country. He taught Sebastian to carve, and I'm told that Sebastian did much of the major work, but Miguel did the fine works of the face, the hands, placing glass eyes, because the authentic style had glass eyes, so these figures have glass eyes. And so he kind of masterminded the project and completed it. And the figures are made of wood, but then covered with plaster, and then they're painted with gold leaf, and then they paint them with their color, and while that color paint is still wet, they scrape it away to create whatever decorative pattern they're trying to achieve on the figure. So that's the process. But the resulting product in this case is a very stunning piece of work, lovely artistic work. I've encountered many people, if only briefly, many of them offering gestures of kindness and charity. And so when I look back on it now, or look over the experience, I see this network of people all over the world that I've been able to touch and that have touched me in some way. And I guess the bottom line for me is that in our troubled world, this experience of encountering all these people has reaffirmed to me the basic goodness of humankind.